Jake Morrison wiped the grease from his hands and stared at the flickering display panel of his cargo ship. The Liberty's Edge was getting old, just like everything else in his life. 23 years of hauling supplies across the outer rim had taught him one thing. Space was dangerous, and helping strangers was usually a mistake. The ship's communication system crackled to life as he approached the mining colony of New Denver. Static filled the bridge, then cleared to reveal a weak distress signal. Jake frowned and adjusted the controls. The signal was coming from somewhere near the asteroid field, about 2 hours off his planned route. "Great," he muttered, running, a hand through his graying hair. "Just what I need." Jake had learned long ago that distress calls in this part of the galaxy usually meant pirates or worse. Smart captains ignored them and kept flying, but something about this signal felt different. It was faint, almost desperate, and definitely not the usual pirate trap frequency. He checked his fuel levels and cargo manifest. The mining colony was expecting medical supplies, but they weren't in a rush. He could spare a few hours if he kept the detour short. Against his better judgment, Jake changed course toward the asteroid field. The Liberty's Edge moved slowly through space, her engines humming with the tired sound of machinery pushed beyond its prime. Jake had bought the ship 15 years ago with his military pension, dreaming of adventure and freedom among the stars. Now he mostly dreamed of having enough credits to fix her properly. As he approached the coordinates, Jake's scanner picked up a small craft drifting between two large asteroids. The ship was unlike anything he had seen before. It was sleek and silver, with designs that looked both beautiful and deadly. Definitely alien technology, but not from any species he recognized. Jake moved closer, his hands steady on the controls. Despite his nervousness, the alien ship was badly damaged. Scorch marks covered its hull, and one engine was completely destroyed. It looked like it had been in a serious fight. "Hello, unknown vessel," Jake transmitted on the standard emergency frequency. "This is Captain Morrison of the Liberty's Edge. Do you need assistance?" No response came back. Jake waited, then tried again. Still nothing. He moved his ship closer and activated the external cameras. Through the damaged cockpit of the alien craft, he could see a figure slumped over the controls. The pilot appeared to be unconscious, maybe dying. Jake stared at the image on his screen. Every instinct told him to turn around and leave. Getting involved with alien politics was dangerous, and he had no idea what species the pilot belonged to or why their ship had been attacked. For all he knew, they could be a criminal or terrorist, but the pilot looked small and helpless in the wrecked cockpit. Jake had seen enough death in his military days. He couldn't just fly away and let someone die when he had the power to help. "Damn it," he said quietly, and began preparing the docking procedures. Jake extended the Liberty's Edge docking tube and carefully connected it to the alien ship's emergency hatch. The process took nearly an hour, as he had to work around the damaged sections of the other vessel. When the connection was secure, he grabbed his emergency kit and entered the tube. The alien ship's interior was dark and filled with smoke. Emergency lighting cast everything in a red glow. Jake moved carefully through the narrow corridors, following signs he couldn't read toward what he hoped was the cockpit. He found the pilot strapped into a chair that looked designed for a humanoid body. The figure was wearing what appeared to be a flight suit, but Jake couldn't see much detail through the helmet's tinted visor. The pilot was definitely alive but unconscious, breathing shallowly. Jake checked for obvious injuries and found several. Cuts and bruises, but nothing that looked immediately fatal. The real danger was staying in the damaged ship. Atmosphere was leaking, and the life support system was failing. He carefully lifted the pilot, surprised by how light they felt. The body seemed human-sized, maybe smaller. Jake carried them back, threw the docking tube to his ship, then sealed the connection. In the Liberty's Edge medical bay, Jake placed the unconscious pilot on the examination table and began removing the helmet. As the visor lifted away, Jake stepped back in surprise. The The pilot was definitely humanoid and appeared to be female. Her skin was pale with a slight blue tint, and her hair was silver like starlight. Strange markings ran along her temples, looking almost like tattoos, but with a depth that suggested they might be natural. Despite the alien features, she was unmistakably beautiful. Jake checked her vital signs with his basic medical scanner. Everything seemed stable, though he had no idea if the readings were normal for her species. Her flight suit looked expensive, made from materials he didn't recognize. The design was practical but elegant, definitely not the cheap gear most pilots wore. As Jake was examining her equipment, the woman's eyes suddenly opened. They were a striking violet color, unlike anything he had ever seen. She looked around quickly, taking in her surroundings, then focused on Jake with an expression of wary alertness. "Where am I?" she asked in perfectly clear English, though her accent was unfamiliar. "You're on my ship, the Liberty's Edge," Jake said, holding up his hands to show he meant no harm. "I found you drifting in a damaged fighter. You were unconscious." The woman sat up slowly, wincing as she moved. She studied Jake's face carefully, as if trying to determine whether he was friend or enemy. "My ship," she said. "Is it salvageable?" Jake shook his head. "I'm sorry. The damage was too extensive. You're lucky to be alive." For a moment, the woman's composed expression cracked, and Jake saw real grief in her eyes. Then she pulled herself together and extended her hand in a very human gesture. "My name is Vera," she said. "Thank you for saving my life." Jake shook her hand, surprised by the firm grip. "Jake Morrison, what happened to your ship?" Vera's expression became guarded. "Pirates. They caught me off guard while I was running a cargo job. I managed to escape, but they damaged my engines. I've been drifting for 2 days." Jake nodded, though something about her story felt incomplete. The destroyed ship looked military, not like a typical cargo hauler, and Vera's equipment seemed too expensive for a simple freight pilot. "Where were you heading?" he asked. "Nowhere specific," Vera replied. "I'm freelance. I go where the work takes me." "Well, I can drop you off at the next space station. New Denver has passenger service to most of the inner worlds." Vera was quiet for a moment, then looked directly at Jake. "I don't suppose you need crew? I'm good with ships and I can pay my way." Jake studied her face. He could use the help, especially someone who knew alien technology. The Liberty's Edge was falling apart, and he couldn't afford a proper mechanic. But taking on unknown crew was risky, particularly someone who might be running from trouble. Something in Vera's violet eyes convinced him. Maybe it was the quiet dignity she maintained despite losing everything, or maybe he was just lonely after years of flying solo. Either way, Jake found himself nodding. "We can try it for a few runs," he said. "See how it works out." Vera smiled for the first time since waking up, and Jake noticed how the expression transformed her face. "Thank you, Captain Morrison. You won't regret this." As Jake showed Vera to the spare quarters, he wondered what he had gotten himself into. He had saved a stranded pilot and gained a crew member, but he suspected there was much more to Vera's story than she was telling him. Little did Jake know that the woman he had rescued was Princess Viridian Caney, third in line to the throne of the most powerful empire in the galaxy, and that this chance encounter would change the course of human history among the stars. 3 weeks had passed since Jake rescued Vera from the asteroid field. In that short time, his cargo ship had changed completely. Systems that had been broken for months now worked perfectly. The engines ran smoother than they had in years. Even the coffee maker produced better coffee. Jake watched Vera work on the navigation computer and shook his head in amazement. She had fixed problems he did not even know existed. Her hands moved over the alien components she had installed with the skill of someone who had been born to work with advanced technology. "Where did you learn to do all this?" Jake asked, as Vera finished upgrading the scanner array. Vera looked up from her work. You pick things up when you fly different ships for different employers. Each species has their own way of doing things. Jake nodded, but he was not completely convinced. Vera knew too much about too many different technologies. Most pilots specialized in one or two types of ships. Vera seemed to understand everything from human engineering to alien systems he had never heard of. "The scanner upgrade is finished," Vera said, wiping her hands on a cloth. "We should be able to detect other ships at twice the normal range now." Jake tested the new system. The scanner showed details about nearby objects that his old equipment could never have found. "This is incredible. How much did these parts cost?" Dictator. "Not worry about it," Vera said quickly. "Consider it payment for saving my life." Jake frowned. The components Vera had used were worth more than his ship. Where had she gotten them? And how could a freelance pilot afford such expensive equipment? Despite his questions, Jake could not argue with the results. His cargo business was doing better than ever. Vera had a talent for finding profitable jobs and negotiating with alien customers. She spoke several different languages and seemed to know important people at every space station they visited. Their first big test came when they landed at Omega Station to pick up a cargo shipment. The station master was a large alien with 4 arms and a bad attitude. He tried to charge Jake extra fees that were not in the original contract. "The docking fee has gone up," the alien said in broken English. "Pay extra or leave without cargo." Jake started to argue, but Vera stepped forward. She spoke to the alien in his own language, her voice calm but firm. Jake could not understand the words, but he could hear the authority in Vera's tone. The alien's attitude changed immediately. His 4 eyes went wide, and he began bowing repeatedly. He spoke rapidly in his own language, sounding nervous and apologetic. "There has been a mistake," the alien said to Jake in much better English than before. "No extra fees. Please accept our apologies for the confusion." As they walked back to the ship with their cargo, Jake looked at Vera with new curiosity. "What did you say to him?" "I simply explained that trying to cheat honest traders was bad for business," Vera replied. "Some species respect direct communication." Jake did not believe that was the whole story, but he did not push for more details. Whatever Vera had said, it had saved him a lot of money and trouble. The second test came a few days later when they stopped at a trading post on the border between human and alien space. Jake needed to refuel and buy supplies, but the post was known for being rough. Pirates and smugglers used it as a base, and fights were common. While Jake was negotiating for fuel, a group of alien thugs surrounded a human family near the docking bays. The aliens were tall and muscular, with gray skin and sharp teeth. They were demanding payment for protection services that the family clearly could not afford. Jake wanted to help, but he was outnumbered and outgunned. The aliens carried energy, weapons, and Jake only had a simple pistol. Getting involved would probably get him killed without helping the family. Then Vera walked over to the group. She was much smaller than any of the aliens, but she moved with confidence. Jake could not hear what she said, but her voice carried the same tone of authority he had heard at Omega Station. The lead alien looked down at Vera and laughed. Then, Vera said something else, and the laughter stopped. The alien's expression changed from amusement to fear. He spoke quickly to his companions, and the entire group backed away from the human family. "Find somewhere else to conduct business," Vera said in English, loud enough for everyone to hear. "These people are under my protection." The aliens left without another word. The human family thanked Vera repeatedly before hurrying to their ship. Other people at the trading post stared at Vera with new respect and wariness. "How do you do that?" Jake asked when they were back on the Liberty's edge. "Do what?" Vera replied, but Jake could see she was avoiding his eyes. "Make dangerous aliens back down just by talking to them. That's not normal pilot training." Vera was quiet for a long moment. "I grew up around different species. You learn how to read their body language and what words carry weight." Jake sensed there was more to the story, but he did not press for details. Vera had proven herself to be valuable crew, and she had probably saved his life at the trading post. Whatever secrets she was keeping, she was using her knowledge to help people. Their partnership was tested again when Jake's ship was impounded by corrupt officials on a planet called New Ceres. The officials claimed Jake's cargo manifest was incomplete and demanded a huge fine before they would release his ship. Jake knew it was a scam, but he also knew that fighting corrupt officials usually made things worse. He was prepared to pay the fine and take the loss. But Vera told him to wait at a local cantina while she handled the situation. "I know how to deal with bureaucrats," she said. "Give me a few hours." Jake spent the afternoon drinking bad coffee and worrying about his ship. Vera returned just before sunset with good news. "The impound has been lifted," she announced. "Your ship is free to go, and the officials have apologized for the misunderstanding." "How did you manage that?" Jake asked as they walked back to the spaceport. "I explained that the cargo manifest was perfectly legal and that falsely impounding ships was a serious crime," Vera said. "Sometimes officials need to be reminded of proper procedures." When they reached the spaceport, Jake saw the same officials who had impounded his ship. They were very polite and helpful, completely different from their earlier behavior. One of them even helped load Jake's cargo personally. Jake noticed that the officials kept glancing at Vera with nervous expressions. Whatever she had said to them, it had made a strong impression. As the Liberty's Edge left New Ceres behind, Jake realized that his partnership with Vera was changing his life. His business was more profitable than it had ever been. His ship was running better than when he had first bought it, and he was visiting parts of the galaxy he had never seen before. But Jake also realized that Vera was not who she claimed to be. Normal freelance pilots did not have access to expensive alien technology. They did not speak multiple alien languages fluently. And they certainly did not have the kind of influence that could make thugs retreat and corrupt officials apologize. Jake looked at Vera as she worked at the navigation station. She was plotting their course to their next destination, her purple eyes focused on the star charts. Whatever her real story was, Jake was glad she was on his side. "Where to next?" Jake asked. Vera smiled without looking up from her work. "I've found us a very profitable job hauling medical supplies to the outer colonies. The pay is excellent, and it's for a good cause." Jake nodded and settled into the pilot's seat. He had stopped asking too many questions about how Vera found their jobs or negotiated such good rates. The important thing was that they were helping people and making an honest living. He did not know that Vera was using her royal connections to direct aid to colonies that needed help. He did not know that she was carefully choosing jobs that would show him the best and worst of galactic civilization. And he definitely did not know that she was slowly falling in love with the simple honesty and decency of the human cargo pilot who had saved her life. Vera watched Jake prepare the ship for hyperspace jump and felt something she had never experienced before. For the first time in her life, someone valued her for her skills and character rather than her royal bloodline. Jake treated her as an equal partner, not as a princess to be obeyed or a political tool to be used. She knew she would have to tell him the truth eventually. But for now, she was content to be simply Vera, crew member of the Liberty's Edge, working alongside the most genuinely good person she had ever met. The ship entered hyperspace, carrying its crew toward their next adventure, and the moment when Vera's carefully hidden past would finally catch up with them. Jake was checking the cargo manifest when 3 armed men entered the docking bay. They wore military gear but no uniforms. Their weapons were clean and expensive. These were not common criminals or pirates. These were professionals. The leader of the group was a tall woman with short brown hair and scars on her face. She walked with the confidence of someone used to command. Her 2 companions flanked her, their hands resting on their weapons. "Captain Morrison," the woman said as she approached Jake's ship. "My name is Colonel Beth Anderson. We represent a group of human colonies that need your help." Jake looked at the 3 strangers and felt nervous. He had heard of groups like this before. Human rebels who fought against alien governments. Getting involved with them was dangerous and usually illegal. "I'm just a cargo pilot," Jake said carefully. "I don't get mixed up in politics." "We're not asking you to fight," Anderson replied. "We need someone to transport medical supplies and communication equipment to colonies under blockade. The pay is very good." Jake was about to refuse when Vera appeared at the top of the loading ramp. She had been working on the ship's computers, but stopped when she saw the visitors. Her face went pale when she recognized Anderson. Anderson stared at Vera for a long moment. Then her expression changed from businesslike to shocked. "Princess Viridian Caney," Anderson said slowly. "What are you doing here?" Jake felt the world spin around him. Princess? Vera was royalty? He looked at his crew member with new eyes, seeing details he had missed before. The way she carried herself. The expensive equipment. The ability to intimidate aliens with just words. "You know each other?" Jake asked, though he was beginning to understand that nothing about Vera was what it seemed. "Princess Viridian is the third heir to the Dominion Empire throne," Anderson explained. "Her family rules over half the galaxy. What we want to know is why she's working on a human cargo ship." Vera walked down the ramp slowly. She looked at Jake with sadness in her purple eyes. "I was going to tell you eventually," she said quietly. "Tell me what?" Jake asked, though he was starting to put the pieces together. "Everything," Vera replied. "My real name is Princess Viridian Kane. I'm third in line to rule the Dominion Empire. The ship you found me in belonged to my personal guard. I wasn't attacked by pirates. My own brother tried to have me killed." Jake sat down heavily on a cargo crate. The woman he had been working with for weeks was one of the most powerful people in the galaxy. No wonder she could make alien officials apologize and thugs run away. No wonder she had access to expensive technology and important contacts. "Why?" Jake asked. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I wanted to be treated like a normal person for once in my life," Vera said. "You valued me for my work, not my title. You treated me as an equal. Do you know how rare that is for someone like me?" Anderson stepped forward. "Princess, if you're running from your family, you should come with us. The human resistance could use your knowledge of Dominion weaknesses." "I'm not running," Vera said firmly. "I'm trying to change things from the inside. My brother Marcus wants to eliminate me because I believe the Empire should treat all species equally. He thinks I'm too soft on humans and other subject races." Jake looked at Anderson. "Subject races? Humans are second-class citizens in the Dominion Empire," Anderson explained. "We can't hold high government positions. We pay higher taxes. Our colonies can be seized without compensation. That's why groups like mine exist." Jake felt anger building in his chest. He had known that humans were not fully accepted in galactic society, but he had not realized how bad the situation was. "And you support this system?" he asked Vera. "No," Vera said quickly. "That's why my brother wants me dead. I've been working to change the laws that discriminate against humans and other species. But change takes time, and Marcus is impatient to take the throne." Anderson pulled out a small device and showed it to Jake and Vera. 3 days ago, Marcus declared you dead in a pirate attack. He's claiming your share of the inheritance and positioning himself as the next emperor." Vera stared at the device in shock. "He's moving faster than I thought." "Which is why you should join us," Anderson said. "Help us fight back against the Empire." "Fighting will only make things worse," Vera replied. "A civil war would kill millions of innocent people. There has to be another way." Jake listened to the conversation and tried to process everything he had learned. The woman he had rescued was a princess. She was fighting for human rights but trying to avoid a war. Her own family wanted her dead. And now, rebels wanted to use her as a symbol for their cause. "What do you want from me?" Jake asked Anderson. "Transport supplies to human colonies that are under siege." Anderson replied. Your ship can reach places our military vessels cannot. The Empire knows our ships, but they don't know yours. Jake looked at Vera. What do you think? It's dangerous, Vera said. If we're caught helping the resistance, my brother will declare it an act of treason. That's a death sentence. And if we don't help? Jake asked. Anderson answered for her. More human colonies will fall under tighter Imperial control. More families will be separated. More people will die. Jake thought about the human family he had seen threatened at the trading post. He thought about all the times he had been treated as inferior by alien officials. He thought about Vera risking her life to change an unfair system. I'll do it, Jake said finally. But I have conditions. Name them, Anderson said. First, Vera makes her own choice about whether to come with us. No pressure either way. Second, we only transport supplies, not weapons. I won't help start a war. Third, if things get too dangerous, we're out. Anderson nodded. Agreed. Jake turned to Vera. What's your decision? Vera was quiet for a long moment. Jake could see her struggling with the choice. Stay with him and help the resistance, or return to her life as a princess and try to change the system from within. I'll come with you, Vera said finally, but not as a princess giving orders to subjects, as your partner helping people who need it. Anderson smiled. Good. We have a colony that desperately needs medical supplies. The Imperial blockade has cut off all official aid. As Anderson explained the mission details, Jake realized his simple life as a cargo pilot was over. He was now part of something much bigger and more dangerous. But looking at Vera, he knew he was making the right choice. Vera felt relief and fear in equal measure. She had finally told Jake the truth about who she was, and he had not rejected her. But she also knew that joining the resistance would put them both in terrible danger. Her brother Marcus would never forgive her for siding with human rebels. 3 hours later, the Liberty's Edge left the space station carrying medical supplies and communication equipment for a besieged human colony. Jake was still processing the revelation about Vera's identity, but he was committed to helping people who needed it. As the ship entered hyperspace, neither Jake nor Vera realized that Imperial agents had already identified their ship. The hunt for the missing princess was about to begin, and Jake's simple cargo vessel was now a target for the most powerful military force in the galaxy. Anderson watched the Liberty's Edge disappear into hyperspace and smiled grimly. Princess Viridian Caney was worth more to the Resistance than a dozen military victories. With her knowledge of Imperial operations and her symbolic value, the human cause had just gained its most important ally. The game had changed, and everyone involved knew there was no going back. The Liberty's Edge dropped out of hyperspace near the human colony of New Haven. Jake looked at his scanner and saw Imperial ships surrounding the planet like a metal net. 3 destroyers and a battlecruiser hung in space, blocking all routes to the surface. That's a lot of firepower for one small colony, Jake said as he studied the enemy formation. Vera worked at the communication station, listening to Imperial transmissions. Her face was grim as she translated the alien voices. They're not just blockading the colony. They're preparing to invade. Jake felt his stomach drop. How long do the colonists have? According to what I'm hearing, the invasion begins in 12 hours, Vera replied. The Imperial commander is waiting for troop transports to arrive. Jake looked at the cargo bay full of medical supplies and communication equipment. The colonists needed these supplies desperately, but getting past 4 Imperial warships seemed impossible. His cargo ship had no weapons and no armor. One shot from those destroyers would turn the Liberty's Edge into space dust. There has to be a way, Jake said, more to himself than to Vera. Vera pulled up a tactical display of the star system. The Imperial ships are positioned to watch the main approach routes, but there's an asteroid field on the far side of the planet. If we could reach it without being detected, we might be able to land during the night cycle. Jake studied the display. The asteroid field was dangerous even for experienced pilots. Ships regularly got lost or destroyed trying to navigate through the floating rocks. But it was their only chance. "How good are you at flying through asteroids?" Jake asked. "Better than most," Vera replied. "But Jake, if we're caught, my brother will order our execution. There won't be a trial or negotiation." Jake thought about the families on New Haven waiting for help that might never come. He thought about children getting sick because they had no medicine. He thought about the colony falling to Imperial forces in just 12 hours. "We have to try," Jake said finally. They approached the asteroid field from the dark side of the system, using the star's radiation to hide their heat signature. Jake turned off all non-essential systems to reduce their electronic footprint. The ship became cold and quiet as they drifted toward the rocks. Vera took the co-pilot seat and activated the short-range scanners. "I'll guide you through the safest path. Stay close to the larger asteroids. They'll block the Imperial sensors." Jake had flown through asteroid fields before, but never with this much at stake. He followed Vera's directions, weaving between house-sized rocks and avoiding the smaller debris that could damage their hull. Sweat ran down his face despite the cold air inside the ship. "Imperial patrol coming up behind us," Vera whispered, watching her scanners. "Turn off the engines and drift." Jake shut down the engines just as an Imperial scout ship passed nearby. The sleek alien vessel moved slowly through the asteroids, its searchlights sweeping back and forth. Jake held his breath as the light passed over their ship, but the Liberty's Edge looked like just another piece of space junk among the rocks. After the patrol passed, they continued toward New Haven. It took 4 hours to cross the asteroid field, but they finally reached the planet's night side without being detected. Jake began the approach to the colony's landing field. The colony of New Haven was smaller than Jake had expected. Maybe 3,000 people lived in a collection of simple buildings surrounded by farmland. It looked peaceful and ordinary, which made the Imperial blockade seem even more cruel. Colonial leader David Chen met them at the landing pad. He was a middle-aged man with tired eyes and work-worn hands. "Captain Morrison?" Colonel Anderson said. "You were coming, but we didn't know if you'd make it through the blockade." "We brought medical supplies and communication equipment," Jake said as his cargo ramp lowered. "Where do you want them?" "Medical supplies go to the hospital," Chen replied. "Communications gear goes to our command center. We'll have teams ready to unload everything in 30 minutes. As the colonists began moving cargo, Chen pulled Jake aside. "Captain, I have to tell you something. The Imperials aren't just here to establish control. We've intercepted their communications. They plan to relocate our entire population to work camps." Jake felt anger burning in his chest. "Work camps?" "Slave labor," Chen said quietly. "Our farms produce food that feeds 3 other star systems. The Empire wants that production to continue, but they don't want to pay us for it." Jake looked at the colonists working to unload his ship. These were ordinary people trying to build honest lives on a frontier world. They had families and dreams and hopes for the future. The idea of them being forced into slavery made Jake sick. "How many people can you evacuate?" Jake asked. Chen shook his head. "This is our home, Captain. We've spent 20 years building this colony. Most people won't leave even if they could." Vera joined the conversation. "What about the children? At least get them to safety." "We've discussed it," Chen replied. "But our transport ships were destroyed in the first Imperial attack. We have no way to evacuate anyone." Jake thought about his cargo ship. The Liberty's Edge could carry maybe 50 people in uncomfortable conditions. That was barely a fraction of the colony's population. "I can take some of your people," Jake offered. "Not many, but some." "Thank you," Chen said. "But we've decided to stay together. If the Empire wants our colony, they'll have to fight for it." Jake admired the colonists' courage, but he also knew they had no chance against Imperial forces. The destroyers in orbit could level the entire settlement in minutes. As the sun began to rise over New Haven, Jake realized they had a bigger problem. Imperial troops were landing on the far side of the planet. The invasion had begun early. "We need to leave now," Vera said, monitoring Imperial communications. "They're sending fighter squadrons to sweep the entire planet." Jake wanted to stay and help defend the colony, but his cargo ship was not built for combat. The best thing he could do was escape and bring back help. "Load anyone who wants to come," Jake told Chen. "We leave in 10 minutes. In the end, only 12 people chose to evacuate. Most were elderly colonists and a few families with young children. The rest stayed to defend their homes. Jake watched New Haven disappear behind them as the Liberty's Edge climbed toward space. He felt like he was abandoning good people to a terrible fate. But he also knew that surviving meant they could continue fighting the Empire. "Where to now?" Vera asked as they cleared the atmosphere. "Back to Colonel Anderson," Jake replied. "She needs to know what's happening here?" As they entered hyperspace, Jake looked back at the Imperial fleet surrounding New Haven. Somewhere below, 3,000 colonists were preparing to fight for their freedom against impossible odds. Jake promised himself that this would not be the end of their story. He would find a way to help them, even if it meant taking on the entire Dominion Empire. Behind them, the first shots of the battle for New Haven lit up the planet's sky. 2 months had passed since the fall of New Haven. The news had spread through the human colonies like wildfire. Imperial forces had taken the planet in just 6 hours, and the entire population had been shipped off to work camps. The message was clear: resist the Empire and face slavery or death. Jake stood in the command center of Freeport Station, a hidden base built inside a hollow asteroid. Around him, representatives from a dozen human colonies argued about their next move. "Colonel," Anderson tried to keep order, but emotions were running high. "We need to hit back at the Empire," shouted Captain Tom Bradley from the mining world of Dust Creek. "Show them that humans won't be pushed around." "With what?" replied Maria Santos from the agricultural colony of Green Valley. "They have battleships. We have cargo haulers and mining equipment." Jake listened to the arguments and felt frustrated. The human resistance had grown since New Haven, but they were still disorganized. Everyone wanted to fight, but no one could agree on how. Vera sat beside Jake, using her knowledge of Imperial operations to plan supply runs to endangered colonies. In 2 months, they had evacuated over 1,000 people from worlds threatened by Imperial occupation. But for every person they saved, 10 more fell under Imperial control. "We need better coordination," Jake said during a break in the arguments. "Right now, every colony is fighting alone. The Empire defeats us one at a time because we don't work together." "Easy to say," Bradley replied. "But how do you coordinate resistance across 50 star systems? Imperial forces intercept most of our communications." Vera looked up from her datapad. "What if we created a network that didn't rely on long-range communications? A chain of hidden supply bases that could support resistance operations?" Anderson studied the idea. "That would require massive resources and perfect timing. One mistake, and the entire network gets exposed. Not if we built it smart," Jake said. "Small bases, constantly moving, supplied by ships the Empire doesn't suspect." Over the next week, Jake and Vera worked with Anderson to design a mobile resistance network. The plan was ambitious: create floating supply bases hidden in asteroid, fields and nebulae, connected by fast courier ships that could avoid Imperial patrols. The key was using ships that looked harmless. Cargo haulers, mining vessels, and passenger transports could move freely through Imperial space. The Empire expected resistance from military ships, not from ordinary civilian vessels. Jake's first test mission took him to the Rigel system, where 3 human colonies were under Imperial siege. His job was to establish contact with local resistance leaders and set up a supply drop point. The meeting took place on a neutral trading station. Jake sat in a crowded cantina, waiting for his contact. The station was full of aliens and humans conducting normal business, which provided perfect cover for secret meetings. His contact turned out to be Lisa Morgan, a young woman who ran supplies to frontier colonies. She looked like an ordinary trader, but Jake could see the steel in her eyes. "The situation in Rigel is bad," Lisa explained quietly. "Imperial forces control all 3 planets. They're demanding increased production quotas and threatening to relocate anyone who complains." "What do the colonists need most?" Jake asked. "Medicine, communication equipment, and hope," Lisa replied. "People are starting to believe the Empire can't be stopped." Jake gave Lisa a data chip containing the Resistance network plans. "This shows drop points where you can pick up supplies. No fixed schedules, no predictable patterns. Everything changes based on Imperial patrol movements." Lisa studied the data. This could work. But we need proof that the Resistance is making a difference. People need to see victories, not just survival. Jake understood her point. The Resistance was good at running and hiding, but they had not won any major battles against Imperial forces. Morale was dropping throughout the human colonies. The solution came from an unexpected source. Vera received a secret message from Admiral Drake Kellner, the human commander serving the Imperial fleet. The message was simple. "Meet me at coordinates 237 Alpha. Come alone." Jake insisted on going with Vera to the meeting. They found Admiral Kellner waiting in a small ship at the edge of an empty star system. The Admiral was a tall man with gray hair and sad eyes. "Princess Viridian," Kellner said as they boarded his ship. "I've been looking for you." "I'm not hiding," Vera replied. "Why did you want to meet?" Kellner activated a privacy screen that would block any listening devices. "Because I'm tired of following orders that make me sick. The Empire has become something evil and I can't be part of it anymore." Jake studied the Admiral carefully. "You're willing to betray your own fleet?" "It stopped being my fleet when they started enslaving innocent people," Kellner replied. "I joined the Imperial Navy to bring order to the galaxy, not to destroy families and steal planets." Vera leaned forward. "What are you offering?" "Intelligence about Imperial operations, advance warning of attacks, safe passage through Imperial space for Resistance ships," Kellner said. "In return, I want your promise that when this war ends, there will be justice for everyone, not just revenge." Jake looked at Vera. This could be the breakthrough the Resistance needed. With someone inside the Imperial command structure, they could anticipate attacks and protect threatened colonies. "How do we know this isn't a trap?" Jake asked. Kellner handed them a data chip. "This contains the planned attack routes for the next Imperial offensive. 6 human colonies will be hit simultaneously in 3 days. Stop those attacks and you'll have your proof." Jake and Vera returned to Freeport Station with the Admiral's intelligence. The Resistance leadership was skeptical at first, but the detailed attack plans convinced them to take the risk. Colonel Anderson coordinated the defense effort. Resistance ships moved to intercept Imperial forces before they could reach their targets. For the first time, human colonies had advance warning and prepared defenses. The Battle of 3 Suns became the Resistance's first major victory. Imperial forces expecting easy conquests found themselves facing coordinated defense fleets. 2 Imperial destroyers were destroyed, and the attack force was forced to retreat. News of the victory spread throughout human space. Colonies that had been considering surrender suddenly found new hope. Recruitment for the Resistance doubled almost overnight. Jake and Vera continued running supplies to Resistance cells, but now they were part of a larger strategy. The mobile supply network was working, and Admiral Kellner's intelligence allowed them to stay ahead of Imperial patrols. During a supply run to the Centauri colonies, Jake noticed something interesting. The Resistance was attracting support from non-human species. Alien traders who had been mistreated by the Empire were offering help to human rebels. "Word is spreading," Vera explained as they met with a group of alien smugglers. "Other species are watching to see if humans can actually challenge Imperial authority." The alien smugglers were led by a reptilian trader named Gornex. His species had been conquered by the Empire decades earlier, and his homeworld was now an imperial mining operation. Humans fight differently than other species, Gornex explained in broken English. Other species negotiate, compromise, accept defeat. Humans never stop fighting. Jake realized that the human resistance was becoming a symbol for all the species oppressed by the Empire. If humans could successfully challenge imperial authority, it might inspire galaxy-wide rebellion. As the Liberty's Edge left Centauri system, Jake looked at Vera working at the navigation station. In 6 months, their simple cargo operation had become the backbone of an interstellar resistance movement. "Do you think we can actually win?" Jake asked. Vera smiled at him. "I think humans have something the Empire doesn't understand. You never give up, even when winning seems impossible. That kind of determination can change the galaxy." Jake nodded and plotted their course to the next supply drop. The resistance was growing stronger every day, and the Empire was starting to take notice. Soon they would face their greatest test yet. But for now, Jake was content to know that they were making a difference, one supply run at a time. 1 year after the rescue at the asteroid field, Jake Morrison found himself commanding a fleet of 200 ships. The bridge of the Resistance flagship Unity was crowded with humans and aliens working together to coordinate the largest military operation in galactic history. "Imperial fleet detected at the edge of the Terran system," reported Communications Officer Lisa Morgan. 3 battleships, 12 destroyers, and 40 fighter squadrons. Jake studied the tactical display. Prince Marcus had finally decided to end the human rebellion by attacking Earth itself. If the Imperial forces succeeded in conquering humanity's homeworld, the resistance would collapse. "Admiral Kellner, what's the status of your forces?" Jake asked through the secure communication channel. 2/3 of the Imperial fleet has joined our cause," Kellner replied from his flagship. "But Marcus still has enough ships to destroy Earth's defenses." Vera stood beside Jake, wearing the simple uniform of a resistance commander rather than royal robes. Over the past year, she had proven herself in battle after battle, earning the respect of every species in the growing alliance. "The key is the orbital defense platforms," Vera said, pointing to the tactical display. "If Marcus destroys them, Earth will be defenseless against bombardment." Jake nodded. Earth's population was 12 billion people. Most of them were civilians who had never been involved in the galactic conflict. They deserved protection regardless of politics. "All ships, this is Admiral Morrison," Jake announced over the fleet communication system. "Our mission is simple: protect Earth and end this war. Every species in this fleet has suffered under Imperial oppression. Today we fight for freedom." The combined resistance fleet moved to intercept the Imperial forces. Jake's ships included human cargo vessels converted to fighting ships, alien smugglers with hidden weapons, and even some former Imperial vessels commanded by defecting officers. The battle began when Imperial fighters attacked the outer defense stations. Jake watched as human and alien pilots worked together to protect the orbital platforms. A pilot from the lizard-like Gornex species saved a human squadron from destruction, while human engineers helped repair damaged alien ships in the middle of combat. "Prince Marcus is demanding to speak with you," Lisa reported. "He's threatening to destroy civilian targets if you don't surrender." Jake opened the communication channel. Prince Marcus appeared on the main screen, wearing elaborate royal robes and a crown that glittered with jewels. He looked nothing like Vera, with cold eyes and a cruel smile. "Captain Morrison," Marcus said with obvious contempt, "you have caused me considerable trouble. Surrender now, and I promise your death will be quick." "I have a better offer," Jake replied. "Surrender to us, and we'll give you a fair trial." Marcus laughed. "You think your collection of cargo ships and criminals can defeat the Imperial Navy? I am the rightful emperor of this galaxy." "You're a tyrant who enslaves innocent people," Jake said. "And tyrants always fall eventually." Marcus cut the communication and ordered his ships to attack civilian targets. Imperial bombers moved toward Earth's major cities, preparing to kill millions of people as an example to other rebels. Jake's fleet moved to intercept the bombers, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. Just when the situation looked hopeless, Admiral Kellner's forces arrived from hyperspace behind the Imperial fleet. "This is Admiral Kellner to all Imperial ships," came the broadcast. "I am ordering you to stand down and surrender to resistance forces. Prince Marcus is no longer your legitimate commander." Half of the remaining Imperial ships immediately stopped fighting and joined Kellner's forces. The other half continued to follow Marcus, but now they were badly outnumbered. The final battle took place in orbit around Earth. Jake led a boarding party onto Marcus's flagship while Vera coordinated the fleet battle. The fighting was fierce, but human determination and alien courage proved stronger than Imperial arrogance. Jake found Prince Marcus in the ship's throne room, still wearing his crown despite the battle raging around him. The prince was armed with an energy sword and surrounded by his personal guards. "You cannot defeat me," Marcus declared. "I am royalty. You are nothing but a cargo pilot." "That's right," Jake replied, drawing his simple pistol. "I'm just a cargo pilot who believes people should be free." The fight was brief. Marcus was skilled with his elegant weapon, but Jake had learned to survive in the real world. When the prince fell, his remaining guards surrendered. Vera arrived as Jake was securing the throne room. She looked at her dead brother with sadness rather than triumph. "It didn't have to end this way," she said quietly. "He could have chosen to help people instead of ruling them." With Prince Marcus dead and Admiral Kellner in control of most Imperial forces, the war was effectively over. But Jake and Vera faced a new challenge, building a government that would treat all species fairly. The solution came from an unexpected source. The alien species that had joined the resistance suggested creating a democratic alliance where every world would have an equal voice. It was a radical idea that had never been tried on a galactic scale. "Humans have shown us that freedom is worth fighting for," explained Gornex during the Constitutional Convention on Earth. "Now we must work together to create a government based on those principles." Jake found himself nominated for president of the new Galactic Alliance. He tried to refuse, claiming he was just a cargo pilot, but representatives from dozens of species insisted that his leadership had made their freedom possible. Vera was elected as the Alliance's first Secretary of Defense, responsible for maintaining peace without oppressing anyone. The woman who had once been heir to an empire now served the people who had elected her. The inauguration ceremony took place on Earth, with representatives from every member world in attendance. Jake stood on the steps of the rebuilt United Nations building, looking out at a crowd that included humans, aliens, and former Imperial citizens. "6 months ago, I was hauling cargo between frontier worlds," Jake said in his speech. "I never expected to be standing here today. But I learned something important during this war. It doesn't matter what species you are or where you come from. Everyone deserves to be free." After the ceremony, Jake and Vera walked through the gardens outside the building. Earth was beginning to heal from the war, and construction crews were working to repair the damage from the final battle. "Do you think it will work?" Vera asked, watching alien children play with human kids in the park. "A democratic government ruling hundreds of different worlds?" "It has to work," Jake replied, "because the alternative is going back to tyranny and oppression." Vera smiled and took his hand. "When I first met you, I thought you were just another simple human pilot. I never imagined you would change the entire galaxy." Jake squeezed her hand gently. "I didn't change anything. We all did it together. Humans, aliens, even former Imperial citizens who chose freedom over oppression." As the sun set over Earth, Jake thought about how his life had changed since that day he found a damaged ship in an asteroid field. He had started as a lonely cargo pilot struggling to make ends meet. Now he was the leader of a galactic government dedicated to peace and equality. The road ahead would not be easy. Building a democracy across hundreds of worlds with dozens of different species would present challenges no one had ever faced before. But Jake was confident they could succeed. After all, they had already accomplished the impossible. A small group of rebels had defeated the most powerful empire in galactic history. If they could do that, they could do anything. The Liberty's Edge sat in the spaceport nearby, ready for Jake's next mission. He was still a cargo pilot at heart, but now his cargo was hope for the future, and with Vera by his side, he was ready to deliver that hope to every corner of the galaxy. The age of human equality among the stars had finally begun.